Hello, my dear lovely students. I, Akanksha Gandhi, as a part of ITRC Technologies Private Limited, are going to give you a technical presentation on written and oral communication. So let's our first slide with communication. What is communication? Communication is simply an act of transferring the information from one person to another or from one place to another. It could be through telephone lines or through computers. In this, we can send information and receive information also. And the information we send could be anything like related to your subject, related to your work, any of the information. So our next slides conveys us about the types of communication. So the first type, that is the category it conveys, is spoken or verbal communication. Spoken or verbal communication means anything pertaining to our mouth, anything we convey to other person. It could be sending or receiver, it could be through mouth. For example, like face to face, like telephones, through telephones, radios, televisions, and any other media. Next is your non-verbal communication. Non-verbal communication does not involve the use of mouth. It involves the use of communication through body language, gestures, how we dress, that is your appearances. Next is your written communication. Written communication is a form of communication, a type of communication which involves the information in a written form. It could be your letters, emails, books, magazines, the internet, or via any other media, which could be or which can be in a written form. Next is your visualization. Visualization means to visualize something by seeing something, by, for example, graphs, your charts, your maps, your logos that conveys something through their visualizing or through visualizing them. Next is your verbal communication. Verbal communication involves the use of words, that is the medium of communication. Verbal communication includes your both oral and written communication. Verbal can be both oral, anything pertaining to mouth, or it can be written, anything conveyed via written form. An effective verbal communication is a two-way process. So, when we speak verbally, we interact with someone. While interacting, we need other person to interact too. For example, Geeta talking to Sita. So, if Geeta is talking to Sita, one is the sender and other is a receiver. One is saying, another is listening. Usually, verbal communication is the one to one mode or one to one interaction. One to one mode or one to one interaction means face to face interaction. Most commonly, it is a face to face interaction. It helps an individual to build and maintain relationship in the society and also helps in your professional career to grow and also build confidence in yourself to interact with any of the other person in your organization or in any field you are involved in. Next is your oral communication. Oral communication, like I said, implies communication through mouth. It includes individual conveying with each other, but it is a direct conversation or telephonic conversation. So, verbal communication is a direct form of communication, means it involves the use of one to one communication like speeches, presentations, discussions are all forms of oral communication. It involves interpersonal communication. Interpersonal communication means a communication which involves the use of two persons. One, That is the sender, which is sending the information, and second, the receiver, which is gaining the information, like I explained in the earlier slide about this. Now, let's move on to the advantages of oral communication. Oral communication is time saving. Second is reduction of cost. Third is easiness. Fourth is effective for illiterate persons. Fifth is quick feedback. Sixth, maintaining secrecy. Seventh, reliability. Eighth, coordination. Ninth, motivation. 10th, avoidance of slow coach. 11th, flexibility. And 12th, special application. Time saving means when we communicate verbally, we save few times. Because when we communicate verbally, we respond immediately. So our response doesn't delay because we are communicating one to one. Second is reduction of cost. Reduction of cost means when you communicate, it does not involve any use of data or any use of package we need to update while communicating because we are communicating one to one. Next is easiness. It is quite easy for you to explain anything to somebody because sometimes we are not able to explain it in a written form, but while conversing with each other, like in a conversation or interacting with one other person through facial expressions, also, it helps us to know about various things about the response of the other person. So it creates us easiness more than the written form. Next is effective for illiterate persons. As we all know that illiterate means those who are not educated. So if you are conversing a person, you are conveying something to a person in any language in a written form, and he's illiterate person is not able to grasp anything. So if we communicate through verbal, that is through oral communication, it is very easy for that particular person to grasp anything. Quick feedback, like I said in the first step. Next is maintaining secrecy. Maintaining secrecy means the conversation we are having does not have any record maintained in your library. So it maintains a secrecy, and it is not open because when you're interacting with some person, like interacting with person which involves you and other, so it maintains secrecy because sometimes we are not in a comfort zone, or we are not that comfortable that we can interact in front of lot of people, so we interact in a closed spaces. So it maintains helps in maintaining secrecy. Reliability, as it is trustworthy. Second is motivation. With the help of oral communication, you can motivate various people to achieve their goals in life. Second is avoidance of slow coach. Slow coach means the process is not slow, so it is fast as we are interacting sender and receiver directly. So the feedback also comes to us in a very quick manner. Flexibility, it is quite flexible because it can be casual as well, it can be informal as well, or it can be formal as well. Next is special applications. So special applications means you can apply various application, various method to convey yourself in a oral communication. So this was the advantages of oral communication. So let's move our next slide towards written communication. Written communication is sharing and exchanging of written symbols between individuals or group. It is the presentation of ideas in a logical manner in written form. Like in a written form, you can explain things in a more formal way as compared to verbal. So verbal, we most oftenly interact in a casual form. We can, but in a written form, most things comes in a formal manner, like letters, faxes, emails, reports, memos, advertisements that are quite formal in nature. It does not involve any slangs or any shortcut. As in verbal, also we can apply slangs or we can react, but in written communication, we need to follow the strict patterns, the etiquettes while interacting in a written communication. So let's move on to the advantages of written communication. Authoritative documents means we have a proof. Lazily understanding means we require time to understand. Acceptability, it can be accepted easily because it is in a written form and we have a proof also that we have submitted that particular document at that particular time. It is quite effective because it is in a written form and it means something. It has a proof and it has a permanent record too. Reduction of risk because you have a permanent record, and in case you want to convey something to somebody and if he or she does not agrees, you have a written record of that which can help you to reduce the risk in your future career. Less possibility of distortion. Distortion means that misinterpretation of truth. In verbal communication, the truth may be lagged behind because it came from one person to another, then to third, so it somewhere get distorted in between. But in written communication, it cannot be distorted because the words that is written has a record maintained. Alternative method, we have various alternative method, like we can send we can send a written form through mails or can explain through presentations also. Delegation of authority, like delegation of authority means assigning duties to your lower level clerks or your underworking employees. So next is effective control. You have control of it, like you can you can forward your policies, your rules. So it can be quite effective in an organization. Personal images also. Personal image means whatever you explain to it or to somebody in a written form creates an impression on the other person as well. And it is a wide access because whatever you have written you can transfer it to n number of people, to wider people. For example, in an organization you can forward the mail through all the employees, or you can forward the mail to the company, other companies. So it has a wider access as compared to verbal communication. So here we have a difference between oral written communication. Like I said, a record. Written has a record, whereas oral does not have a record. Cost. Its cost is high. Like I said, we have to require in this laptop data, electricity, whereas oral communication does not revolve all of these things. Written communication feedback is quite delayed. Reason being is sometimes you are not able to see the mail, sometimes you are not able to see the information being passed on in a written form. Whereas in oral, you are interacting with other persons, so you have to provide feedback, or you can provide feedback in an immediate manner. Feasibility, that is, the written communication is rigid, it is inflexible, it does not involve that much of easiness. Whereas oral communication was flexibility. Like I said, you can use various slangs, you can use various secret codes. Whereas in written communication you have a certain words, or you have a certain restrictions that has to be followed while sending any information to other person. Time taken, written communication takes more time for transferring information, because first you have to create something, you have to write something. For that you think, you write, then you forward, then it reaches to the other person. Whereas in oral communication, it does not involve that much of lengthy process, it's quite easy. You just have to say it to the other person about whatever regarding subject you are involved in. Next is your reliability. Written is reliable, reason being you have authenticate proof, whereas oral is not reliable because you don't have a proof. Next is legality. Legality means written communication is legal evidence. It is a evidence wherever you found yourself in a risk, you can provide that as a form of evidence. Whereas oral communication don't have a evidence because we are communicating through mouth, so it is not been written anywhere what you have said. Next is distortion, that we have discussed in the last slide also. Effectiveness, written communication is not at all effective as oral communication. Reason being, written communication can be avoided, but oral communication cannot be avoided. Written communication can be avoided, like you can read the information in later 2 hours or 3 hours or next day or any other day whenever you opens up your information side. But whereas in oral communication, you have to be available, and your information is quite effective spreaded, because you are interacting with the other person in a one-on conversation. So relationship, written communication is it establishes indirect relationship between parties, because what you have written, indirect means it is not directly, like the boss send the information to the employees, then employees send information to the further employees, like boss, then department, then employees, then that employee forward the information to the lower employees. So it does not have a direct relationship, it involves a hierarchy that has to be followed. In an oral communication, it is a direct relationship between the parties, because you are interacting face to face, one on one. So it maintains a direct relationship as compared to written communication. Last is formality. It maintains formal communication relationship form. Like I said, written communication is mostly in a formal manner, and oral communication is not that much in a formal manner. That means it does not maintain that much of a formal pattern, so it is mostly in a informal manner. So I hope you understand the written oral communication, and thanks for your patient understanding and cooperation. I hope you like my presentation. Thank you and have a nice day.